Welcome to the RCA South podcast, where system-impacted individuals get together for real talk and positive reinforcement. Hosted by Ricky and Andrea Gaines. And just so you know, there will be nothing about us without us.
Welcome to Returning Citizens Association. My name is Ricky Gaines. I'd like to thank you and welcome all of our guests, all of our members, and all of our supporters on this RCA South podcast. Let's go. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some recent issues and a little bit about some good news. Tapped In magazine, like always, we in the building. And we're going to talk to our brother named Eric Muhammad, Oakland, California native, good brother. He got a story, you know, and this is going to be like one of our interviews with him, but we're going to continue this process, talking to our membership and talking to our collaborators and our affiliates about like what it means to be a returning citizen and to be a returning citizen, and what advice can we help other people to navigate this process. So Eric Muhammad is an RCA ambassador, you know, and I'll let him introduce himself. E, what's going on, bro?
Hey, good afternoon. How you doing today? You and the wife?
Pretty good, babe. Do you want to start us off? Well, in the question that she can start us off, but I would say that our mission at Returning Citizens Association is to increase the economic, political, and social capital of returning citizens in the United States. And our goal is to decrease the recidivism rate. Now, we say that's a huge goal. We like to say that we think globally, but we act locally. So wherever we are, that's where we're doing the leading from, and that's where we're making our impact. And our goal is to decrease the recidivism rate. That's huge. That's huge. I'll let Eric explain to you what that means to him. What that means to you, bro?
What that means to me is never returning back to the darkest place of my life. And fortunately for me, I paroled December 1st, 2008, and I have never been back to prison since.
Wow. Say that again. Let me hear that again. You paroled in December?
I say it like this. I paroled December 1st, 2008, after serving 20 years, 7 months, and 26 days, and I haven't returned to prison since my release.
So how long have you been home?
It'll be 16 years in December.
16 years in December without, any violations, any reoffending.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Eric.
I'm originally raised in Oakland, California. I was incarcerated at a young age as a affiliate of a drug trafficking organization, and I did a substantial amount of time. The one thing I want to say real briefly is that I was guilty, that I was participating in activities that was very detrimental to myself, my family, and my community. And as a youth, the drug culture was like the gang culture, and it was a volunteer activity that I did that was no reflection of my family or my community. It was the environment. It was like the times, the culture, and the community at that time.
Any other question? You want to throw this in your ear, bro? Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I just wanted you to give us a little context of, who you are and a little bit of your background and stuff like that.
Well,
so
go ahead.
No, come on, bro, because I'm finna try to open you up with that background, but go ahead. If you're gonna go into it, that's great.
I'm from the streets of East Oakland. I don't have extensive work history other than being a drug dealer. But at the same time, I have a college education now. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. After prison, I started a nonprofit organization called Project Peace, Positive Education, Accomplishes Cultural Equality. I've worked for the state of California. I've worked for Tesla Motors, and currently work for Bonafide, which, as an addition to being ambassador for returning citizens, my life work is helping people be successful as I was to come home and never return.
Right.
So how like, okay, so being that you are RCA ambassador and you work for Bonafide, so you have some kind of access to, the work in this returning citizen field. Now, what if you had your choice, and if you can like wave your magic wand, what services would you provide? What resources would you be able to provide, or what activity would you be able to do to help people navigate this process and to do it more successfully, right? Now we have our experience. We know what we done. I know me, me spending 24 years in prison and now being out for 5 years or so. I feel like that it's things that I know that I wish I knew then what I know now. So this is kind of how we like to upgrade our services and our programs by getting better insight, right? So what ways could you be of service, say starting in 2025? So for 2025 to 2030, what thing can we implement if money and resources, things is not an issue? How can we help this process even more better?
One of the things that I've been having my eye on is a mentorship program, because I believe a mentorship program gives you that one-on-one assistance that you may need. For example, Mr. Fab has a weekly meeting in the Bay Area called Thug Therapy, where all the people come together and share their stories. It goes back to the concept of each one teach one. And I believe that a mentorship program can be successful, or is necessary to be successful, because when we do time like we did, 2 decades behind incarcerated, there are issues and challenges that we're going to face that we don't even know about. And many of the challenges that I ran into, I never anticipated, I never prepared for, and therefore I had difficulty overcoming them. So a mentorship program would help me. Briefly, for example,
That's deep, bro.
finance is very important. Learning how to take care of your personal finances is very important. Personal relationships and interpersonal relationships is very important. I actually struggle more with the simple things than the complicated things.
You talk about that? I got you, babe. I got you.
Wow, can you give me an example? So elaborate on it. So say like you came home, you say it's something that was a simple thing. Elaborate on, or an example, of that.
Okay, so for example, I have no problem getting a job. I've worked for 16 consecutive years and filed a tax form for 16 consecutive years because I had the desire to work and continue to have the desire to work and serve my community. Now, one of the challenging things I had was interpersonal relationships with family, relationships, even in my marriage, because in prison, you don't have intimate, close, meaningful relationships. You develop relationships out of necessity. So what's normally or simple for, say, an 18 or 19-year-old person with a girlfriend and a relationship, and learning the aspects of giving and receiving, I didn't know that. So I left at 20. Well, I knew it, but I didn't experience it. And so I was once shared this situation where when you are arrested and incarcerated at a young age, you're uprooted.
Right.
And so life is a combination of life experiences. When you go to prison, you have limited experiences.
Right.
It's like when I got my college degree, I had a college degree, but no experience.
Right.
So when I came home, I had a wife with no experience.
Wow.
I had no experience in how to be a husband. And
Wow.
so when I ran into difficulties, because this is a society or a time in which most marriages face challenges and difficulties, the successful ones meet and overcome those challenges and difficulties. And I
Amen.
wasn't able to do that, which
Right.
to a married couple will seem simple. Love your wife, come home, honor your wife, cherish your wife.
Right.
I did all of those things, but it's some of the other
Let him go. Let him
simplest
go.
things. The best example I can give you is living with a cellie is much different than living with your wife.
I understand. Yes. Okay. So, my question. So I have. So thank you. That's awesome. That gives so much insight to what you're talking about. So my question, one thing I would ask of you is, so speak to your younger self, right? You're coming out. You're back at that time where you had your wife, you didn't have those experiences, you knew how to get a job, you knew how to handle business and get your degree, right? But like you say, the experiences and those interpersonal relationships. So, what advice would you give to your younger self or your old self, maybe 3 months before he's going to get out? Because we have mentorship with, we have our weekly non-clinical mental health support group for that exact reason, the therapy, stuff like that. But we also mentor people who are in prison, who are about to come out of prison. So we have a gentleman who will be coming out in August, and we mentor him on Fridays, one-on-one mentorship, right? But what advice would you give to yourself back then, coming home, with when it comes to those interpersonal relationships?
If I had someone to talk to, someone who could relate, that I can be honest and open with, once I faced certain issues or challenges, I believe they would have been resolved in their infancy.
Okay.
Therefore, they wouldn't have snowballed into issues that detrimentally affected my life. For example, I took NA and I took anger management when I was incarcerated, but I didn't take a course in how to have interpersonal relationships with other family members,
Yeah.
with the opposite sex, as well
Yeah.
as just neighbors, because in
Yeah.
prison it's segregated and
Yeah.
it's anti-sociable to a certain degree. And so a lot of us that come out after a long term of incarceration, we carry that with us. So I was very standoffish. And so I believe a mentorship or someone that talked to me would tell me, like I tell, the advice that I give people that I pick up is to be open, be honest, and learn how to listen for comprehension and not just listen for the sake of, expressing yourself. Because society changes. When you go into society, when you leave society in 1980 and you parole in 2003, society has changed.
Yes.
And so you have to have an adjustment, or you have to have some kind of period of reconnecting or reorientating yourself with that. And I don't think it's a specific criteria, but I think a specific person in your life can help you navigate that. It's like when you first get on a job, you have a trainer who gives you the basics of how the job
Yeah.
is performed. But when you run into certain issues, they're able to correct you or lead you and guide you to a better solution.
Thank you for that. Wow. That's awesome. Thank you. Ricky?
Yeah, bro. Thank you. I feel like that. I feel like that what you're saying is that there is a criteria. I feel like that there is a criteria for that social, and what you described in that mentorship program is social support. And I talked to our mentees yesterday. I talk to them every Friday and throughout the week. But Friday we had these two that called us, and I told them about social support, about preparing for the unexpected, right? And I talked to them about, I think it was about, we had three things that we talked about, but we talked about it 2 weeks ago, and we just brought it back up because I had them talking to other mentors, and I just touched on that stuff. So what you just said was so powerful, but I never thought about it like that, bro. About, you said that if you had somebody to talk to about some of the issues of this interpersonal relationship, the solution, you could have solved some of them things in its infancy, man, when it first started forming. So that's huge, and that's going into our drawing boards, going to our toolbox, because we have that. We have that weekly support group. That's one of the purposes of RCA. We have a weekly support group every Sunday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. But what we don't have, and because some of that stuff could be pretty private. So in our weekly group, I might don't say, hey man, how do I tell my wife you getting on my nerve, in the whole big old group? No, but it could be something more intimate that I need to have a space. So for our group, what I'm looking at is say, okay, every week we'll have what we call a breakout room. So if anybody want to have something that they need to discuss with the facilitator or with any particular member, private, let's give you that space, bro. So you can go in there and talk to me about that stuff. And then I can pick the right appropriate person to probably address that. Cause I know all our shit. We know all our shit, but some people don't know all our shit like me. Y'all can dump on me. I know y'all shit, man. I know it. And you know mine. Because I share it, because this is what we do, right? And so what you just said about this, someone to talk to, that's the whole purpose of RCA, man. To create that social support, that network, so that when those issues arrive, and the ultimate goal down the line is to have this hub, so that when you do that call, when you have a problem with your wife, bro, go to the hub and stay in the hub tonight. There's no beds in there, but we got a cot. I'm gonna make sure there's no beds in there, because we're not gonna make this a sleeping quarters, but we're gonna make this a space where we can go and get our head clear, right? So that we can solve these problems in the infancy, before we have a divorce, before we have a domestic violence situation, before we have, some kind of issue that's gonna blow over though, right? So man, that's really awesome what you said. And I feel like that we the people, you say you don't know the criteria. I do know the criteria. It's us. It's freaking us, man. Because we experience it, and thank you so much. So I'll give you the last 5 minutes to close us out, man. Say whatever you want to say. Again, like I was talking about this violence in the community, we don't have to go into that, because that's a whole nother discussion, man. We know that that's a whole nother discussion. But how can we help? I'm saying, like, what can we do to help alleviate some of the pressure, some of the suffering, right? And if it's having that social support group weekly, if it's doing our events, if it's, putting your story in the magazine so everybody can hear about it, that's what we talk about. So go ahead, bro. And thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So I believe one of the key elements that can help you when you return is to understand your emotional intelligence. Emotions are extremely important. And when I mean emotions, I mean like insecurity. I mean jealousy. I mean animosity, as well as anger. It's a famous concept that I learned from my brother D.B. Bedford. I'll give a shout out to him from East Oakland. He says, when emotions are high, logic is low, meaning that the higher your emotional state is, the less likely you will make a sensible and reasonable decision. For example, insecurity in a relationship. I came home to a wife, a mortgage, responsibility as a father, and I wasn't the head of the household financially because I've been absent for 20 years. And so personally, I felt that I wanted to be the head of the household. So I made certain decisions that probably wasn't in my best interest. And it definitely wasn't in the best interest of my family so that I can regain or reestablish my sense of being the head of the household when that wasn't even necessary. Because if I had listened to my wife, if I had consulted with my wife, she would have told me that's not necessary. At the same time, I have to be, not just I, but we have to be open and honest with ourselves. When we experience insecurity, when we experience fear, like I've never shared my insecurities. I've never shared my fears. I've never shared my disappointments. I've only tried to share things that made me feel good and look good. I was neither at that time.
Bro, so I'm gonna tell you something. So that's the one thing that helps us. I tell you, because your story, I know for me, when I hear about the stories about you come home with a wife, a mortgage, a family, all of this stuff that we say we want, and you come home with it. But you know, on the inside, nobody prepared us for this, right? So some issues, there's some blanks somewhere in there, some blanks somewhere in blank spaces, and we need to fill that up. Well, man, bro, that's power when you can talk about it, because for the next man, I'm telling you what happens for me. I heard this. I heard about one brother told me about how he went home and he did everything for the family. He did everything for the wife. He did everything for the kids that was already there. It wasn't his, but he did it. And everything he did, but I tell you what, he did nothing for himself, right? And I know it seems selfish and stuff like that, because he should do, because you're thinking, you've been on the way for this time, they've been supporting me, I should come home and serve them and do what I'm supposed to do. But what happened is, man, he lost himself, man. And he didn't realize it till he came back to prison. He came back to prison and said, man, he told me all the good stories, but he said, but guess what? That meant nothing because this. So getting ourselves right and being that, having that person to talk to like what you said, share your insecurity, share our fears, share who we are. It don't have to be my mate. It could be my mate. She could be. But see, she lucky right now. I tell you about her. She lucky because she get to sit in on some of my support, all of our support groups. She in every one of my support groups. This is supposed to be about me getting me right. And sometimes it bring in our stuff too. If you come there, you might catch a day where I talk about this is what's happening, y'all. And this is my support group. This is our support group. So it's important for us to be right. Because when the shit happens, and the shit is gonna happen, we wanna be able to be resilient. Why do you think we talk about that word resilient? When shit happens to everything, I know the Bible talk about, that house built on solid rock, man. Not the house built on sand, right? So it's saying that the shit's gonna happen, the trees are gonna blow. But what happens? So some of us, we build our stuff on such a shaky ground that when the stuff come through, boom, we blowing with the wind, right? And that happened. As soon as that happened, like I heard so many stories in prison. Well, what had happened was, they say, as soon as they start with what had happened was, I said, oh yeah, here we go, right? Because what happened was shit happened. And what happens is we need to be able to do what you just said, brother. I love what you just said. And we're gonna continue this conversation, man.
Part 2 for sure.
Come on, brother.
But I want to emphatically state that I came home to a beautiful wife, inside and out, that was very supportive, that did everything she possibly can do, that she knew about. We have to go back and say she also never had experience being a wife to a husband who had did 20 years. So she didn't know how to deal with my insecurities. She thought that she had did everything she possibly could do because she prepared a home for me to come home to. I wasn't prepared to walk through that door, knowing what I know now. So I want to, and me and her have a beautiful relationship right now. We're not together, but we have a friendship. And it may seem crazy, but we're better friends and have a better relationship and have more love and respect for each other today than we did when we shared a house together.
Bro, I totally believe that. And I believe what you just said of that, because I told people, or I try to explain to people that when our mentees, the people that we're talking to, because I know I've been in prison, you've been there. And I thought I didn't know this, what you just said though. Well, she never had the experience with having a husband in 20 years. No fault on her. No fault on her. She ain't know how to do this. It's a whole new thing for her, right? She thinks she's doing something great, being a great supporter. She don't know I got issues. But that's the beauty of my wife being in our support groups, because she get to hear from you guys and all of our members, and then our members' wives about their stuff. So now I'm telling people, you know what? She thought I was the only motherfucker. No, I ain't crazy. This shit is real though, right? And it's so helpful to my relationship. And again, it goes back to that thing when I said, when we hear these stories, when other guys hear these stories, if they're listening, bro, and if they're like me, I plant my life with those insights. The guy that came back from a domestic violence situation, the guy that came back and worked for his wife and everybody else, and then, he had nothing else in the tank for himself. So when they choose to go off and do something else, he done. Like he went off on the deep end. How could you do that? I did all this for you. So it's all these stories that we're talking about, that we're sharing, and more so about the education of our partners and our families, the people who are going to support us. Sometimes they think supporting us is this way, but I try to explain to people that it's a thing called reentry and reintegration. These are two different things and they're separate, bro. We got to reentry. We got to get out of prison in order to re-enter society first. But then it's this reintegration thing. This is about what you talk about, that gelling with your wife, that gelling with society, that gelling with, I'm talking about that getting in your seat, in your lane of this society, of your family, of whatever it is that you want to do. So that's one of the processes that we want to improve on, right? Because I'm only 5 years in this thing. I don't know a lot, You know way more than me, but it's certain things that I know. See, last thing I'll say about this organization, we're not all rock stars, y'all. We don't, and nor do we claim to be. We're not all rock stars, nor are we all bums, right? There's strengths and there's weaknesses. And this brother been home since, what he says, 2008, right? That's a strength right there. He showed us that it's possible. He decreased that recidivism rate. But he also shows us that he got weaknesses too, where he want to increase his strengths. And that's the kind of organization that we have. We have these strengths and we have these weaknesses, and that we are as strong as our weakest link, right? So our brother that just had that incident happen to him and his wife, we want to be there to support them. Because if we can't support our people, then what the purpose is? Like, what the purpose? What we doing? So
let me just leave you with this example. Let me leave you with this one example. I liken myself to a person who won the lottery and went broke. Because my wife, Miss Juju Muhammad, to me was worth anything and everything in this world. But I went broke because I didn't know how to be a millionaire. And how many people win the lottery and go broke?
You own.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to thank everyone I'm gonna chew on that like I'm chewing on this gum, okay? Let me just chew on that and what you just said, because it's very, very powerful.
On that gum.
It's so powerful what you just said, and I'm just so grateful and thankful for you to come on here, share, be vulnerable, be true and tested. Right, 2008, we're 2024, you know what I'm saying? And it's not over, right? So the story is still to be told, and there will be a part 2. We do like to thank everyone for tuning in and being here with us. Thank you to Eric Muhammad and my husband and partner, Richard Gaines. And we do have our Tapped In magazine, so cop it. It's now on blurb.com. Tapped In magazine.
Eric will be in here soon. Next issue.
Yes. Thank you to everybody, and y'all have a great rest of the day.